So today I'll be talking about various lessons from literature, more specifically the two books Fahrenheit 451 and Lord of the Flies. So what I'll be talking about is first I'll give a brief introduction to Fahrenheit 451, where I'll talk about its story, its author, and much more. And I'll talk about the main lesson that I took from it and its applications, and I'll do the same for the Lord of the Flies and its lesson. So Fahrenheit 451 is written by Ray Bradbury, who is quite an interesting author because of the way he writes his books. He uses a lot of figurative speech such as similes and personification, hyperboles, and much more. And I think he does this because it makes his books have more detail, it gives him more thought so that you really have to think, what is the book trying to tell me? And the story in Fahrenheit 451 world, it takes place in a dystopian society where intellectual thought is banned. More specifically, books are banned. They have these people called firefighters who, instead of taking out fires, they create them to burn the books. And the people control what's on TV, and they tell people that they're happy, even though they're not actually happy, and that sadness is bad and all that. And it kind of brainwashes them into thinking that this is how the world should be. And the main character, Guy Montag, used to be a firefighter, but then he kind of goes into this journey of realizing why his world is bad and why it has problems that should be fixed, because that idea of no intellectual thought is a problem. And with this story, Ray Bradbury introduces a bunch of interesting and deep themes. And the main lesson that I took from the book is that society will fail if we do not think. If we do not think, we will become like mindless zombies that follow whatever the government says and all that kind of stuff. Without thought, we cannot have any sort of free will or anything. And in that society, in the book, even some of the people in the higher positions, such as the captain of the firefighters, believes that this is the way it should be, but that's just because he was brainwashed. That's what he's been taught on how to believe. But that's not how it should be. And as I said, by thinking, it can give us free will. We can think beyond the boundaries of what we're told. We can consider whether something is good or wrong and all that. And the book properly demonstrates this by having Guy Montag's wife Mildred talk with her friends about a bunch of stuff. And one of the things they talk about is politics in the current election. And for the current election, they're discussing who they're going to vote, but they don't talk about what's that guy's ideology, what is his goal for our country or city or whatever. They instead talk about who looks more presentable on the surface level, who looks better. Oh, that one guy is fatter and grosser looking. He even has a weird name, but that guy over there, he looks very, very handsome, very well kept. And this really shows how they do not think about maybe the other guy that they thought was gross might have better plans for their country. But they don't think that because it requires too much thought. And it also, by being able to think, it can help increase our happiness. Because in the book, a lot of people are depressed. Like one of the doctors say that people come in often because they have way too many sleeping pills and it just knocks them out and kind of messes up them, and they kind of don't really have much of a purpose. They just think, I should just sit down and have as much fun as I can. Like they have their seashells, which are pretty much like headphones, and they put them in their ear and they listen to music all the time. They can barely go 5 seconds without putting on their seashell thimble things, and they also watch TV all the time, but it's not like thoughtful TV like Schindler's List level or anything like that. It's like very gory, colorful, just a bunch of color in your face. We need to make you feel stimulated kind of TV. And also by being able to think, we can find ways to solve our problems. Like Guy Montag's wife tells him, oh, well, if you're upset, just do what I do. Just drive super fast and run into things. But the problem is that that doesn't really solve your problems. Maybe for like an hour or the rest of the day. But the next day, that drive that you had it did not solve anything. It only temporarily fixed her problems. But by thinking, you can consider how to fix her problems. How should I properly do this so that I can productively and permanently deal with my issues? So by thinking, we can do quite a bit in society. The next book is The Lord of the Flies, and the author is William Golding. Now, this book is very interesting because it shows William Golding's idea that humans are inherently evil, that there's something in every single human being. Even the nicest people have just some kind of evil in them. It's just that they're better at suppressing it. And I feel like why he believes this is because, if I remember correctly, he was a Navy in World War II, and by seeing all the death and destruction, it kind of shifted his idea on how humanity works. It made him think there's no such thing as a perfectly good person, because why is this happening? Every person has to have their flaws. And the story of The Lord of the Flies takes place in an island where this group of boys crash land onto the island from a plane, and they meet up, and then they elect a leader called Ralph who focuses on getting rescued and saved and all that and getting shelter. But then this other boy called Jack competes with them, and he's like, no, we should go hunting. We should have fun. We need to do what we feel like, not what we need. And these completely opposite priorities between them both kind of clash, and then eventually Jack forms this savage tribe that fights with Ralph's group, and because of this, like 3 boys die. Ralph's group is getting chased by Jack's group. They become like this fake tribe where they're just dancing around, hunting and all that, and the island is quite literally on fire. And towards the end, when they get rescued, the boys in the tribe realize what they had done, and they cried a lot because, they messed up. And then the book has quite a depressing mood. As I said, people die, the island is on fire, but he really demonstrates this emotion of uneasiness. You don't know what's going to happen next. It's like the fear of the unknown. First is the beast, but then you realize the beast is not the problem, or at least not the beast that they were thinking of, because the real beast was the beast inside of them, the one that was making them do the bad things. Of course, it was them that was doing it, but it was like they were a beast to each other. They were just hurting each other, hunting. And then the main lesson that I learned from it is that society must have order. Without order, it will crumble into chaos, just like that picture I have. It will just split into pieces where nobody can agree on things. Stuff will fall apart, and you can kind of see it in the modern day, where because of certain types of societies, there are many different types around the world, you can see how some have more order and they have less problems, and then some even, first world countries have not the greatest leaders, and that can definitely lead to very, very major problems, especially due to current events. And by understanding that we must have order, it prevents problems. Quite obviously, because with order, we can think together. What is the problem? How should we deal with it? And with this order, we do not spend all our time arguing. We spend all our time doing stuff that is important. Like, if you watch the news, they don't talk about what's important. They talk about what they feel like, what they think is right. And this causes chaos. And it's why there's so much argument online, in person, all that, because people just can't find order. And it's also, order does not discriminate. People can agree on things despite their differences. People can acknowledge differences. There's no problem with differences, but they can respectfully, disagree. Or if somebody's like a different kind of person, they won't be like, hey, you're a different race or any of that. Then I won't listen to you. They don't do that because there's order. They follow what the people, the leader, and themselves. And then to end it all off, because I was requested to interact with the audience, I decided to have a 3-question quiz. And I would like you to think what the answer would be. So the first one is, what was the lesson for Fahrenheit 451? The lesson is that society will fail if we do not think. Without thought, we will become these brainwashed people that only listen to the government, don't think for themselves, and it will even lead to a higher rate of death and just general sadness and even like this false sense of truth, because what the people in the world think is correct, but it's not correct. And then the second question is much vaguer, but if you're paying attention, you might be able to answer it, is why did William Golding have such a pessimistic view of the world? It is because he was a Navy in World War II, and after seeing all the stuff that happened in World War II, which was quite an awful war, he had kind of shifted, kind of changed his idea on human nature and how humans act. And he just thought that people are evil no matter what. And then the final question is, what was one of the applications for the lesson of Lord of the Flies? One of the main applications that I think is that it kind of kept peace and prevented problems from happening. It definitely helps. Order helps with issues. People can overcome obstacles better with order instead of creating a new obstacle, which is with dealing with other people and the problem they already had in the first place. Thanks for watching my presentation.